One of the best things that general manager Joe Hortiz could do was find a way to separate himself on day 3 of the NFL draft, and there was a couple potential reaches, but he found some great value later on.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Drogemeyer, and we've been covering the Chargers together now for 8 seasons, but this is our 6th year as the host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day. Thank you guys to all the everydayers out there for making us your first listen, and everyone who checked in on all of the draft coverage. And now we know who the Chargers have, but to make sure you never miss the show, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from. David, what do we got today?
Well, Daniel, the Chargers had 6 picks on day 3, and they did it pretty evenly. They grabbed 3 defensive players and 3 offensive players, including 2 corners and 2 receivers to make it a triple dip. 3 wide receivers in this draft, and I don't think anybody was expecting that out of Jim Harbaugh and Joe Hortiz in their first draft.
Yes, triple dipping at wide receiver is not something that I saw coming, but I think for all of these guys, you see why they were brought in, and we'll talk about all of that and how much we like the picks. But today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. I admit it, I have a competitive side and is a big fan of Monopoly Go, the mobile hit twist on classic Monopoly. So join your friends and download Monopoly Go now free on the App Store or Google Play. David, we're going to be getting into all of the day 3 picks from Joe Hortiz and company, including Jim Harbaugh finding a way to sneak another Michigan player in there at the end. But 405, pick 405 in round 4 was a big one because we knew the Chargers going into the day had huge needs and hadn't addressed some of the bigger ones like defensive line and cornerback specifically. I know everyone's cornerback alarms were definitely going off like we talked about on Friday night show, but they end up going with someone who many, could potentially see as a reach, especially by the consensus board. They go with Justin Eboigbe, the defensive lineman, very versatile dude from Alabama, who, if you just look at the stats, I think you think a home run pick. 2023 career high, 63 tackles, 7 sacks, 11 and a half tackles for loss. He was someone that was on the consensus board 143rd, right? So maybe a round early. To me, I think more to do with just how many defensive linemen went and how many defensive linemen they thought they could still get in this draft class that could make an impact for them and gave them kind of what they wanted.
Yeah, absolutely. You're looking here at Justin Eboigbe here, 6'4", 297 pounds, a guy who has a relentless motor. I think you see that pretty right away when you put the tape on. I feel like he does a really good job of setting the edge and not allowing running backs to get outside of him. He sheds blocks very well on short yardage. He's able to play inside and outside, so he provides some versatility there. And he's really, really tough and has great makeup. This is a guy who recovered from a career-threatening spinal injury to come back and earn first-team All-SEC honors. So you got to love that perseverance that he shows. And, hey, he provided, like you mentioned, legit pass rush production on the interior, 7 sacks, 31 pressures, and also a very, very good 86.4 run defensive grade. So this is a guy who can do a little bit of everything that comes from a big, big school.
Yeah, I think when you're talking about what he specializes in, what is his specialty, you have to go with the run defense. Like, I literally have in my notes, I don't think I saw him go backwards. That's true. I just don't think I did. The dude has an 80-inch wingspan and knows how to use it. He can lock guys out. He doesn't go backwards. He can push the pocket back when he needs to in pass rush situations. He's just very, very sturdy. I saw someone, classify him as rugged, right? Super fundamentally sound too. One of the things I loved most about him, very controlled when he gets in the backfield and very, very good at locating the football, right? And I think it depends what games you watch of this guy. If I were you, if you want to get excited about it, watch Texas game, watch the Texas A&M game. In those games, he was a top 3 defender on Alabama, and I think he might have been the 5th defender drafted from them this year. In those games, you can really see it. So maybe the consistency is something that gets, ironed out. I also thought he really helped others on stunts. Did a really good job taking up offensive linemen.
Doing the dirty work, right?
Open up things for other guys. Talking about cons, it has to start with the injury, right? Like, anytime, to me, after watching this guy, it feels like that's had to be what really pushed him down boards. The career-threatening spinal cord injury in 2022 with a herniated disc pushing up against his spinal cord. That has to be one big part of it. Also, only one season of kind of elite production and going to be 23 years old as a rookie. I also think he's raw as a pass rusher. I think he could gain some things there, but he is very disciplined, and I do think that most of his pass rush actually came on the edge, so it'll be interesting to see what happens when he's rushing more on the interior.
Yeah, I mean, for my cons here, I feel like he didn't really bend too well around the corner when he was on the edge. I mean, he's a bigger guy, so that's not that much of a surprise. I feel like most of it was a bull rush. I feel like he needs to add to his repertoire there. But the good thing is he's going to be working right next to Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa, who's going to be able to teach him a lot, especially with the hand usage. We all know how great Joey Bosa is with his swim moves and his clubs. He's fantastic at that. And also, I feel like he needs to rush with more consistent, lower leverage. If he does that on a more consistent basis, he's going to turn into a very good defensive lineman for the Chargers.
Yeah, I think you can see how he fits. I think he's a rotational guy for them right away.
Yeah.
So to find that in the 4th round, I think that's great. And I do think he's someone, it's one of those tweeners like we talked about on Friday's show that could look for, that can move all up and down the line. He definitely brings that. Let's go to round 5, pick 137. Someone that was not on my radar at all. A lot of Chargers fans wanted a corner. I don't think this is who they thought it would be. From Maryland, Tarheeb Still, the slot cornerback, probably at the NFL level, but a cornerback. One of the things, David, I know you loved about him and that jumped out to me right away, loves the dirty work, tackles with ferocity. When you watch as many corners as we have, that's not always a given. This is someone that is not afraid to go up and make a tackle.
Oh, man. I love the way he tackles, man. It's very, very clear when you put on the tape. He enjoys it. He's very, very good at it. 5'11", 188 pounds here for Tarheeb Still. Good awareness and run support. Does a really good job of covering the edge. He's physical with receivers at the line of scrimmage. He doesn't allow much yards after catch. He might allow a catch, but they don't get much further after, he gets them on the ground pretty quickly. Also liked how he improved his passer rating when targeted every single year. Started at 115, then went to 93, then went to 72.7. So it just shows that he's getting better and better. Also, this guy has legit ball skills. He had 5 interceptions in 2023, and I feel like he did a very good job of mirroring wide receivers in the red zone while keeping his eyes on the quarterback.
Yeah, I like a lot about the player. I think at the very least, this is competition in the slot with Jasir Taylor. It was nice watching him matched up with Cornelius Johnson in 2023. A little bit of two birds with one stone action there.
Yeah.
But yeah, with that ball production, I was really surprised to see that him on the consensus board was 271, basically undrafted, right? And this probably is, a reach. There were guys there I was hoping the Chargers were going to take, and Tarheeb Still wasn't one of them. But obviously, they're telling you exactly what they want. And I know tackling is such a big part of what Jesse Minter needs. And I think that they felt like, hey, this is a guy that we can see him contributing right away. As far as the cons go, top end speed, 4.52, 4.49 at the pro day. I think the biggest thing to me is the penalties. 16 penalties over 3 seasons, according to Dane Brugler. I saw one of them for sure, pass interference. He had 3 of those last year. So I think to me, you have to learn to trust your technique a little bit. You can't get grabby even if you're a physical, aggressive player. That bar has to get cleaned up. But I think if he does that, I think there's a lot of room for him to grow and to become, a player, maybe even a starter at the slot corner position.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a guy who's going to play primarily on the inside. He doesn't have much flexibility at the NFL level, in my opinion. I think he's probably going to be more of an inside corner. And then, it's just the flags are a little bit of an issue. He can get grabby, like you mentioned. I think that's just one of the things. And we've talked about it a lot. We definitely like the physicality. We like the toughness. You want to get in receivers' faces, but you got to know when and where to do that. And I think that's something that can be coached up at the next level.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to like. And I mean, obviously, the only thing that matters is what Joe Hortiz and his scouts have on their board, right? For Justin Eboigbe, he said some of their scouts had him as a 2nd-round pick, and a lot of them had him as a 3rd-round pick. So, we're not always valuing guys the same way. And I also think, too, if you're talking about making reaches, you do it in the 4th and the 5th rounds and the 6th rounds. If you find a guy you really like, you don't want to do it with your 2nd or 3rd round pick, which they didn't. They went pretty pretty close to the consensus.
Yeah.
If you have your guys, and we'll talk about potentially tomorrow the blue star guys and which guys we think those were, because there was 3 blue star guys that they got. But go get the guys that you want, especially in these rounds if you really like someone. And I think the other part of it is, too, the Chargers drafted another corner only 3 picks later, I think, to make you feel a little bit better of what they have going on in that cornerback room now. So we're going to talk about Cam Hart and also a big playmaker now in the backfield with Kimani Vidal, someone we're excited about. We're going to get into them and more on today's Locked On Chargers podcast. First, I do need to tell you guys that it's playoff time in the NBA and NHL. Baseball is in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets, guaranteed. That's $150 win or lose. So, I mean, I shouldn't have to tell you guys to be watching all the playoffs going on right now because there's so many great things going on. NHL playoffs, to me, are the best playoffs out there. Even if you don't like the teams that are on the screen, you know what'll make you like them? If you have a little juice on it, I can tell you that thing. I mean, that will make the Stanley Cup playoffs even more exciting, the NBA playoffs even more exciting, but you can bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that is safe, secure, easy to use. You can also do live in-game betting and do prop bets on your favorite players to either, score 20 plus points, score a goal in this game, and so much more. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win to get $150 in bonus bets. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. I also need to tell you guys, of course, about our friends at Game Time. And I know you guys are all going to do things. I beg you, if you're going to some sort of event, check Game Time. There's only upside. If you need tickets to anything, whether it's sports, comedy, music, theater, whatever it is, make sure you're checking the Game Time app. Because the thing with Game Time is you get the Game Time guarantee. So I can guarantee you're going to get the best price with Game Time. Because with the Game Time guarantee, if you find the same ticket in the same row and same section for less, they'll match it 110%. You're just not going to get a better deal than that. The other thing that I love is being able to see exactly what your view is going to be from the seats. I've talked before about how I went to a Blink-182 concert, got the tickets for $18 because they said obstructed view, but I got to see where we actually could see the stage, and it was actually a perfect thing for me and my wife, who really loves them. So make sure you guys check out Game Time because they have flash deals as well, where you can save even more with exclusive in-app deals. So all you have to do is take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time, download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply again. Create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. David, let's get into the second of the Chargers' 5th round picks because they obviously traded up in the draft to go get Ladd McConkey. So their 4th round pick at 110 ended up going down to their 5th round pick at 137, but then they got to pick again, only 3 slots later. And we love to see them double dip at cornerback. This is something we had talked about before the draft. A lot of people asked us, hey, if there's positions you want to see the Chargers take more than one guy, we constantly said cornerback and wide receiver, and they did both. They even triple dipped at wide receiver, which we'll get to. But after reaching for someone like Tarheeb Still, they ended up going with someone where they got great value in round 5, pick 140, when they took Cam Hart. I think someone that a lot of Chargers fans in their mocks had pegged potentially as a 4th round pick for them if they didn't go cornerback early. And I think there's a lot to like. I mean, especially, David, I think when you just look at this dude, he looks like a dominant physical cornerback. He looks like what you want your cornerback to look like, what Jesse Minter likes from his cornerback. 6'3", 202 pounds, 33-inch arms. And I think that's where you start because this is a guy, to me, you're trying to maximize what his physical tools are.
Yeah, he's massive. I mean, he's absolutely huge for a corner that's probably going to be on the outside for you. And obviously you lost Michael Davis, who had, a pretty good height, weight, speed type of combo. He's not quite as fast as Michael Davis was, but he has incredible size. Also, he has special teams experience as a gunner and a jammer. So he's going to bring that to you. He's a big hitter. He forced 3 fumbles, according to Dan Brugler. He led the team there. Also, only allowed a 38-yard reception or 38-yard completion against NC State, but that was the most that he gave up in any game last year. Did not allow more than 25 total yards in any game last season, which is ridiculous.
Outside of the game, he gave up a 38-yard reception.
Outside of that one game. So, I mean, just unbelievable, from a, game in, game out basis, just limiting the production. Very physical on the outside. He's going to get in receivers' faces. He's going to slow them down. And he uses that body and that strength to great effectiveness.
Yeah, I mean, when you have big, long arms like that and you're that tall, you're going to be able to make plays on the football. I think that's one of the things you wish you saw more of, right, is just the production because he is such a big, long-armed guy. I think, to me, what sold me, the game that he had against Marvin Harrison Jr., because not every game was like that, but man, did that dude play lights out against the number one receiver in this draft class. So when you're talking about tests, you're talking about comparisons, and you want to talk about going up against someone like that, that'll prove something to me. So I think it's more about how do you find that every game, right? I also wouldn't be as concerned about the 40 time. According to Bruce Feldman's freak list, he hit 23 miles per hour on the GPS. And yeah, loves to rip the football, uses those long arms effectively. I wouldn't necessarily say it's because of big hits, though. I mean, I did see a couple of pretty nice hits, but my one big thing with this is just definitely did not do enough to get off blocks and go make tackles. He's the anti-Tarheeb Still in this point, where I didn't see the urgency there. I didn't see the willingness to go up and make tackles and go out of his way to be urgent to go make tackles. But I think the biggest thing for me as far as red flags here, no interceptions over the last 2 years, and also had 3 shoulder injuries, 3 shoulder surgeries since 2019. I think that has to be one of the big reasons why this dude fell.
I agree for sure. And then I think just another thing to add to a couple of those that you just mentioned for me is he's just not as twitchy as you probably want on the outside. But that kind of comes with being a gigantic corner at 6'3" and over.
I didn't think the
pounds.
twitchiness for me. To me, it was more just the stiffness. Like in breaking routes and things like that, it was hard for him to stay with guys in their break if they were really quick. So I mean, I get from that standpoint. But I think that's more of a stiffness, like just getting in and out of breaks I thought was pretty tough for him. Like you said, at that size, which makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, he has really good long speed, Daniel. I mean, the long speed is definitely there, but
he could turn with guys and run and stay hip, in their hip pocket for sure. And you'd love to see that.
It's just the quickness and the stop and start that's that is what I was more of referring to.
I get that for sure. I saw that, definitely. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those guys where you're hoping he can turn into something more. You have 2 outside cornerbacks, Asante Samuel Jr., right, and Christian Fulton. You're hoping he can push them and give them competition on the outside and turn into something more down the road. But let's get to round 6, pick 181. The Chargers kind of did what we talked about. Find better, more valuable positions early on as far as your needs go. Wait a little bit on running back, and you'll be able to find somebody that you like. And I really like the guy they ended up with Kimani Vidal. I've heard his name pronounced other ways, but we'll just go with that today. I think a big playmaker to add to the Chargers backfield. Good athlete, 8.88 RAS score, 4.46 40 time. Explosive and has some agility as well. I liked what Joe Hortiz said about him. He's not tall, but he's not small. I think there's a lot to like about this dude. Even at 5'7", still packs 215 pounds. I think there's a lot to like out of this small school running back, David. The 2 things to me, though, that stood out the most, pass protection and being able to catch the football, I think are 2 areas where he's really going to help the Chargers.
100% on the pass protection. I mean, he absolutely stones people. I mean, they don't get close to the quarterback when he's in pass protection. It's not just one of those things where he keeps them away. He delivers a punch, and I absolutely love that. Also, I think a really cool tidbit is he's the great nephew of MLB Hall of Famer Hank Aaron, which is amazing. Obviously, Hank Aaron's one of the best athletes in all of professional sports history. I mean, he's absolutely incredible. Soft hands, like you mentioned, good wiggle. I feel like he finishes his run with really good low leverage, breaks a ton of tackles in space. I mean, the contact balance is absolutely fantastic for Kimani Vidal. Also, I felt like he shows very good patience. He allows his blocks to kind of set up in front of him, and then he cuts off of those blocks. He does have speed to win the edge, and he has an excellent stiff arm, and he used that
I love the stiff arm.
Multiple times. And it's just one of those things where it's like one of the old-fashioned LT stiff arms where he puts the defender in the ground. I really love that. There's a lot to like about Kimani Vidal.
Yeah, I love him as a late-round option for this team that can come in and be a third down back, be a change of pace guy, and maybe more if the injuries happen in front of him. But 2 guys who have been injured, over the last few years. I love this, though. If you love stats, this is from Arjun Manan. 1,661 rushing yards, which is second in the country last year. 1,056 yards after contact, second. 82 rushes for a first down, third. 94 missed tackles forced, which was second in the country, and also 47 runs of 10-plus yards, which was first in the country.
I'll take that.
I don't know if this guy's going to break a bunch of 60-yard touchdowns, but I think he's going to get you a ton of 10 to 20-yard carries that are going to give you nice chunks in the middle of the field to be able to help your offense out a little bit and not need Justin Herbert's arm to get up and down every time, which I think is what you want. I think he fits in well with the backfield. I think he has a chance for immediate contribution, and probably pushes, Isaiah Spiller potentially to the roster bubble. So talking about cons, played against lower competition. I don't think he's a bruising back. He's kind of, he runs hard, but he's not that kind of guy where he's just bowling people over necessarily. And a lot of touches, 873 in college, turns 23 this year as well. And I know age is a big thing with running backs. And I didn't think just also not a guy that's going to shake defenders badly. You know, he's not a guy that's going to be chaining a bunch of cuts together and just leaving a bunch of guys in his wake. I think there's a lot to like about this pick, David. I think taking a flyer on this guy in the 6th round at pick 181, I really liked. But what I also really liked is the Chargers not just double dipping at wide receiver and saying, hey, Ladd McConkey's good enough. How about triple dipping and also finding some exceptional value? Brenden Rice, right? Jerry Rice's son. Also Cornelius Johnson, finding both of those guys in the 7th round. We got to get to that because the Chargers crushed the 7th round of this draft and found 2 guys I fully believe will make the roster in 2024. So we're going to talk about that and more on today's Locked On Chargers podcast. First of all, though, all right, the game is off. We got to pause here to talk more about Monopoly Go. I know what you're saying. Flag on the play. You already talked about that, but there is just too much good stuff in this game. At Monopoly Go, you can team up with your friends for timed tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock, and there's so much to get. Unique stickers you can trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes, cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with, hilarious emojis for taunting your friends when you smash their buildings and take from their bank vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique mini games like digging for treasure or a robot pachinko machine, and there's always new timed events to help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go, so get off the bench and go download it now, free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. All right, David, we have a couple more picks to get to, and I really like the way the Chargers handled day 3 of the draft. And I do think that is somewhere where Joe Hortiz can kind of separate himself, right? Hitting more singles, finding some more diamonds in the rough than Tom Telesco did, who could find one every once in a while. You just didn't get enough consistent production after the 1st and 2nd round under him. And I think you really see some guys in this draft class where you see their path to making an impact. Not a guy that's just going to be a backup and help you potentially down the road and maybe never develop. But some guys I think you could see helping you as soon as this year, even as 7th round picks. But I do want to tell you guys, make sure you're checking out Locked On Sports Today, the first ever 24/7 national sports streaming channel, giving you expert analysis on every sport and every team the way that only the Locked On local experts can give you. So you guys make sure you go check that out. Locked On Sports Today. Subscribe to the YouTube channel so you can get the only thing of its kind. But let's get to this pick, David. I think a pick that was a big hit with Chargers fans, and someone I put on Twitter I was really surprised was available. Round 7, pick 225, Brenden Rice, the wide receiver from USC. I mean, this is a guy I saw getting mocked a lot in the 3rd and 4th rounds, a guy that brings a lot to the table and also scored 12 touchdowns in 2023. David, there's a lot of pros for this dude. It was interesting to see the slide go as long as it did.
I have no idea why Brenden Rice slid to the 7th round. After watching him play and watching several of his games, it didn't make any sense to me. I mean, this is a guy who has legit height, weight, speed combo, 6'3", 210 pounds. Obviously, he's the son of one of the greatest wide receivers of all time.
Probably
Jerry
the
Rice.
greatest, yeah.
Yeah, and arguably the greatest there. Excellent blocker, provided a key block against Notre Dame that secured a touchdown run for Caleb Williams. He keeps working for his quarterback, has very strong hands through contact. He can put his foot in the ground, and he can stop quickly. Most of his yak is going to be coming from strength. I feel like he did a very good job of tracking the ball over his shoulder, and he definitely does a very good job of using his body to position himself in front of defenders. The body control is excellent for Brenden Rice.
Yeah, Senior Bowl standout, only 2 drops in 2023, averaged an explosive 17.6 yards per catch in 2023, which I think is awesome. Great as far as scramble drills and finding a way to get open for his quarterback. And like I said, a value pick. Dane Brugler had him as a 3rd or 4th rounder.
Yeah.
The consensus was 113th, right? But I think the specialty for him, good adjustments when the ball is in the air, good at the back shoulder throws. I think he should be a very big red zone weapon for the Chargers if they choose to use him that way. And just very physical, high points of football, attacks the ball with his hands. And also kind of sneaky fast. 4.5 40 time I don't think is going to blow a lot of people away. But according to Bruce Feldman, also hit 23 miles per hour on the GPS.
Yeah, it looks faster on the tape, Dan.
Game speed, definitely faster than the 40 time there. And also just does a good job of being able to get his body in between him and defensive backs. Yeah. And when you're that big and that tall and have long arms like this, that is a great thing to have because if you put it in the right spot, there's just nothing they can do about it. But very physical route runner as well. Saw him shuck a lot of DBs off of him.
Yeah.
I thought he was pretty physical. I thought the questions, about his physicality were overblown. I guess the cons would be pretty average athletically, just far as the testing goes. 7.17 RAS score, bad shuttle time, not a great separator, not an elite separator, but I do think, for his size, does a pretty good job. But I do think he struggles at times to give those clear throwing windows. So a big thing for him is just going to be like, hey, I'm going to show you that even if I'm kind of covered, you can throw it my direction and trust me in that situation. Dane Brugler said he doesn't play up to his size all the time. I didn't really see that, but I was kind of struggling to find the big cons for this dude. Maybe, if it was a 3rd round pick, I wouldn't be stoked with it. I think getting him in round 7, David, is a pretty good value.
It's incredible value, in my opinion. I mean, for me, I think not a lot of lateral quickness. I mean, not a lot of left and right quickness. Fair. I think is what I saw. Limited yak, and that's kind of because of that limited lateral quickness. And he's definitely not a screen receiver. This isn't the guy you're going to throw the ball to and expect to get some yards after contact, yards after catch. That's just not his game. And then you mentioned, just being below average as a finisher on the 50-50 balls. But, I mean, I thought he did pretty well in those aspects.
I guess it depends I guess it depends. I mean, I know he had 9 in 2022, came back and had quite a few in 2023. So I thought that was a place that he was strong. And, run blocking as well. One of the better run blockers I watched out of any of the receivers in this draft class, which is crazy to say because he's not even the best run blocker we're talking about in this segment, David, because in round 7, pick 253, the Chargers went and took Michigan man wide receiver Cornelius Johnson, who was the best run blocking wide receiver I watched in this cycle. Very easy to get excited about. Good. Another guy that you're getting great value. I mean, 5th or 6th rounder from Dane Brugler, 200 on the consensus board. You get him at 253 with only a couple of picks left in this draft. But full effort blocking, takes good angles. Joe Hortiz said the best, if not one of the best. Actually, it was Chad Alexander that said the best, if not one of the best run blockers in this class. And the thing is, if you want to bully people, right, you want a receiver like Cornelius Johnson on your team because he was even just getting under DB's skin because he would stick with the block so long. Even if the play is on the total opposite side of the field, he's sticking on the block and going and popping somebody. That was easily my favorite part of the tape for Cornelius Johnson.
Yeah, it's really funny to see the defenders just swipe at him after the play, like, get away from me, like just out of pure frustration. But I absolutely love that. Another, really awesome height, weight, speed guy there with 6'2", 212 pounds, ran a 4.4. Moves really well in space, I feel like, with the ball in his hands. Good speed and toughness through contact. He can take a hit. He can stretch the field deep. He adjusts well to the ball in the air. Very, very good blocker, like we already talked about, and a pretty good contested catch receiver, hauling in 9 contested catches in 2023.
Yeah, I love that. Got better every year, too. Led Michigan in receiving yards in 2022 and special teams experience. I love to see 2 blocked punts on the resume. That's something great. I really like, especially for someone who's going to be fighting for a roster spot. But it's easy to see why they brought this dude in. We talked about it so many times as far as the running game goes. And I think he does bring some legit stuff as a receiver and maybe potentially more later down the road. 9.46 RAS score is something you're very willing to work with. But to me, you see, if you want to improve your running game, you got to get tight ends who can block, and you got to get wide receivers who can block.
Yeah, it's not just the O-line.
I mean, if you watch any Michigan game, they're going to run the football a ton from last year. So you're going to get a lot of time to watch Cornelius Johnson as a blocker, and he sprung a lot of big runs in 2023, including in the national championship game, and had a few big catches in that one as well. If you're talking about the cons, a couple of really frustrating drops that I saw when I was watching the games. He had 5 in 2023 overall. And, at the same time, being able to block super well is good, but he's going to have to show at the NFL level he can be more than just a blocker as well.
Yeah, you got to catch the football. I mean, 15 drops in his last 3 seasons, more drops than touchdowns in his collegiate career. Yeah. Not a major yak threat either. According to Dane Brugler, only averaged 2.6 yards after catch in 2023.
That's pretty crazy.
Which is not great. And also, another guy who took advantage of that extra year of eligibility. He is going to be 24 years old in his rookie season.
Yeah, he turns 24 in November. Obviously, so if you're talking about a project that you think is going to be, a wide receiver one down the road, I wouldn't get carried away with that. Yeah, I think you know what he is. He's a specialist, and I think he can still do a good job of comeback routes, sitting down in zones, being a big body target for Justin Herbert. But 1 career 100-yard receiving game, 1 touchdown in 2023. I don't think he's going to blow you away with production that's going to show up on the box score. But the thing about this guy is you like everything he does that does not show up in the box score. You want to get bigger, you want to get stronger, you want to get more physical and more tough, you take somebody like Cornelius Johnson. I love the last 2 picks of the draft. 2 bigger dudes who are both willing to go run block and also light a fire under the ass of a couple other receivers that you already have in that room.
Yeah.
Right? 3 receivers taken in this draft that are going to be pushing and putting a real competition that I don't know if we could have expected going into 2024 with the way that room looks right now. But loved what they did on day 3, and I'm not just saying that. I hated the Max Duggan pick last year. We don't just say these to say this. I really like the guys.
There's a lot of forgettable late round picks in the past, Dan.
Yeah, and I just think that you see even the guys you reach for, right? Interior defensive line went quick. You take Justin Eboigbe. You feel like he's a guy that can help you, and there are a lot of the great ones are already gone, right? You see Tarheeb Still, and a guy who can tackle from that slot corner position. So it's easy to see with this new regime what they're looking for and why they went after the guys they went after. But tomorrow, I want to talk about the whole draft class as a whole, our favorite picks, who these blue star prospects potentially are, maybe the most questionable pick, and so much more. Needs that didn't get addressed. Tight end, edge rusher, right? There's a few of them that you could go to with that. All on tomorrow's show. So make sure you guys are here for that by subscribing or following for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listening wherever you get your podcast from, as well as finding it every day on our social media. You can find it on our Twitter at Locked On LAC. You can find me on there at Dan Talk Sports and David Drogemeyer at Dro Talk SD. You can also find us on Instagram at Locked On Chargers and our Locked On Chargers Facebook page. We'll be back with you guys tomorrow getting into the rest of the draft fallout and what's next for this team after what they did in the draft. But until then, guys, take it easy and go Bolts.